Good day, I hope you're well. Born the second son of Marcus Seneca and Helvia, Lucius Annaeus Seneca the Younger was a Roman statesman, Stoic philosopher, and a playwright who lived in the 1st century AD. Seneca was sickly as a boy and had to be frequently tended to by his aunt in order to maintain his health and recover from illness. As I've mentioned previously, he was brought on to tutor the Emperor Nero when Nero was a boy, but was appalled by the nature of the young man, and ultimately he could not temper his cruel instincts. I'll read a quote from Francis Caldwell Holland's biography of Seneca. Though Seneca obeyed the call of Agrippina to return to Rome and undertake the education of her son, he would have preferred to make other use of his recovered liberty. His own wish was to settle in Athens, as Atticus had done, and there live a contemplative life in the study of moral and natural philosophy. He soon perceived how cruel and profligate was the disposition of his young pupil, and though he persuaded himself that he had in some degree succeeded in mollifying it, he is said to have observed in conversation with his intimates that, if ever the young lion tasted human blood, the ingrained ferocity of his nature would assert itself. Ultimately, later in his life, Seneca would be exiled from Rome by Nero, and, inevitably, following the failed conspiracy of Piso, Nero ordered Seneca to end his own life, an instruction that Seneca met with great courage, encouraging his friends and his wife to be brave at the end. I wish to read from his letter of consolation to Helvia, his mother, following the death of one of her sons, his brother. This translation was published in 1889 and was translated by Aubrey Stewart, a Fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge. He was a prolific author of Greek and Roman literature who is much forgotten today. In respect to the author, we will read his brief preface first. I can say little by way of preface to Seneca's minor dialogues, which I have not already expressed in my preface to De Beneficiis, except that the minor dialogues seem to me to be composed in a gloomier tone than either the De Beneficiis or De Clementia, and probably were written in a time when the author had already begun to experience the ingratitude of his imperial pupil. Some of the dialogues are dated from Corsica, Seneca's place of exile, which he seems to have found peculiarly uncomfortable, although he remarks that there are people who live there from choice. Nevertheless, mournful as they are in tone, these dialogues have a certain value because they teach us what was meant by Stoic philosophy in the time of the 12 Caesars. I have only to add that the value of my work has been materially enhanced by the kindness of the Reverend Professor J.E.B. Mayer, who has been good enough to read and correct almost all of the proof sheets of this volume. From London, 1889, Aubrey Stewart. Why need we weep over parts of our life? The whole of it calls for tears. New miseries assail us before we have freed ourselves from the old ones. You, therefore, who allow them to trouble you to an unreasonable extent, ought especially to restrain yourselves, and to muster all the powers of the human breast to combat your fears and your pains. Moreover, what forgetfulness of your own position and that of mankind is this? You are born a mortal, and you have given birth to mortals, yourself a weak and fragile body, liable to all diseases. Can you have hoped to produce anything strong and lasting from such unstable materials? Your son has died. In other words, he has reached that goal towards which those whom you regard as more fortunate than your offspring are still hastening. This is the point towards which move at different rates all the crowds which are squabbling in the law courts, sitting in the theaters, praying in the temples. Those whom you love and those whom you despise will both be made equal in the same ashes. This is the meaning of that command, "Know thyself," which is written on the shrine of the Pythian oracle. What is man? A potter's vessel, to be broken by the slightest shake or toss. It requires no great storm to rend you asunder. You fall to pieces wherever you strike. What is man? A weakly and frail body, naked, without any natural protection, dependent on the help of others, exposed to all the scorn of fortune. Even when his muscles are well trained, he is the prey and the food of the first wild beast he meets, formed of weak and unstable substances, fair in outward feature, but unable to endure cold, heat, or labor, and yet falling to ruin if kept in sloth and idleness, fearing his very victuals, for he is starved if he has them not, and bursts if he has too much. He cannot be kept safe without anxious care. His breath only stays in the body on sufferance, and has no real hold upon it. He starts at every sudden danger, every loud and unexpected noise that reaches his ears, ever a cause of anxiety to ourselves. Diseased and useless as we are, can we be surprised at the death of a creature which could be killed by a single hiccup? Is it a great undertaking to put an end to us? Why, smells, taste, fatigue, and want of sleep, food and drink, and the very necessities of life are mortal. Whithersoever he moves, he straightway becomes conscious of his weakness, not being able to bear all climates, falling sick after drinking strange water, breathing in air to which he is not accustomed, or from other causes and reasons of the most trifling kind, frail, sickly, entering upon his life with weeping. Yet, nevertheless, what a disturbance this despicable creature makes, what ideas it conceives, forgetting its lowly condition. It exercises its mind upon matters which are immortal and eternal, and arranges the affairs of its grandchildren and great-grandchildren, while death surprises it in the midst of its far-reaching schemes, and what we call old age is but the round of a very few years.